Welcome everyone, it's Matt and Goo, and today we're going to do a little different video than normal. We're going to compare Erdrick and Xenlon and try to help you decide which unit is better for your party. Remember, I know a lot of people say Erdrick is the best unit, and on average, basically everyone in Japan basically agrees. He is ranked the number one unit 80% out of all of the votes. Sorrow is second. Xenlon is a fourth or fifth. But that doesn't mean that Erdrick is always right for you. And Xenlon is still a top tier unit. So stay tuned and I'll explain why in a moment. Alright, let's just go quickly through Erdrick. I've already gone through him in this video. Basically, he is a hero, and he is the hero of heroes. Raises attack power by 15. His awakening skills, the important ones here. First one, odd turns, increases all of his stats. Third turn, reduces damage by 20% for the first 3 turns. And the fifth one is the only one that I feel is weak out of both of them. Max HP 100 and physical power plus 5%. So both of his are physical power 5%. Now, Erdrick has 3 skills with 3 different elements: bang, boom, and whoosh. And his heroic skill turn 3 is an incredibly powerful zap. But he has Astron, which is Keklang, and puts an ally into Keklang state. And this is a unique ability that requires him to be blossomed. And yes, he comes with a relatively small blossom, but it is a blossom in order to power up completely. So let's just quickly go through him. Xenlon his leadership is Dragon Breath power by 25%. And this is incredibly important for Dragon teams, which for me actually means that there's going to be a meta for Dragon Breath teams in RTA, in the real-time battles. And I also think that Dragon teams, especially with Xenlon, who won't be in time for the first RTA, and Erdrick will be barely in time for it. And I'm going to try to make a video for that on that tomorrow to kind of go through what I see and how I play real time. Xenlon is a little sleeper, but he is a little bit more niche. His abilities, everything's with breath. And what I want to say for breath skills here is that breath skills allow you to avoid any unwanted surprises, as very few enemies, and pretty much none of the enemies that are going to be brought in most RTA teams has any ability to really lower breath, other than, lowering damage in general, where like gem slimes are going to be really, really important. And even gem slimes have a hard time with breath skills, just because breath skills ignore some things and also completely ignore evade, ignore reflect bubbles, etc. So breath weapons are right now a very safe option to be for the offensive in RTA, or real-time arena. Xenlon's Awakenings. The first one, reduced damage by 50%, not for 3 turns, but 50% for 3 attacks up to 99 turns. So it is 3 attacks that will receive 50% less. The third one is if HP is greater than 50%, start action will increase enemies by 20%. The last one is restores own HP when attacked by enemy. And that will be very important, because along with the reduced damage by 50% for the first 3 attacks and restoring own HP when attacked by enemy, very, very powerful in keeping his HP up at 50% initially. And what Xenlon does is has the ability to buff himself and other dragons for their breath power and can do it twice, basically at every odd turn. Erdrick, though, has his intrinsic, which basically makes him immune to most debuffs for the first 3 turns. So you can see the differences and overall. So we're just going to kind of go through the comparison here. For the skills, I know this is going to be very controversial. I actually prefer Xenlon's because even though there's only 2 elements, it's all breath attacks. It's much more useful overall. This is not a very large win on Xenlon. This is a very, very tight. And Erdrick's heroic skill can do 600% damage. It is elemental based. It is zap based. It does do an awful lot of damage there. And it's something that you can use to try and destroy someone on turn 3, which in real RTA is very important. But because Xenlon has the breath attacks and the ability to buff his own breath repeatedly, I think Xenlon is actually a little bit better in the overall power. And breath is based on level, where you can lower Erdrick's attack, etc. Xenlon, those breath attacks are going to do damage. So it's a very slight win there. The leadership, generally, the 15% attack is better than the dragon breath. But if you run a dragon team, and as I say, in RTA, a dragon team may be incredibly hard to beat with a Xenlon, especially if you're built defensively. You could just shut her down there and then do massive damage at turns 3 and beyond. So, in general, Erdrick is the winner, but if you build a team correctly, Xenlon's Dragon Breath unlocks a brand new meta that not a lot of people do, but you are going to see in the top tiers, especially in the real-time arena. For evasion, Bang Spell versus breath attacks that always hit. The breath attacks that always hit is more important, but on a side note, you can use that spell on other high-end meta units currently in the game. So I do give it for Xenlon, but Erdrick doesn't fall too far behind. Immunity, Erdrick wins absolutely hands down. No doubt about it. And personally, it's probably the strongest part about Erdrick that a lot of people really don't put into words, is his ability to be massively immune. Stats, Erdrick's just got better stats overall, and for longer battles, Erdrick is better than Xenlon. Because of those stats, there's just no way to, there where Xenlon has stats where he needs them. The attack and magic just don't matter because most of his really annoying skills are going to be with the breath attacks, which is just level based. So he has the stats where he needs them, but the heroes are just better. You could argue I should put 2 there. That's fair. In Arena for offense, he has immunity and 3 elements, and I think that's better than Xenlon's breath and regeneration. But you can't, if you use it correctly with the right units. Xenlon, and I will probably be running more with Xenlon, especially when Bahamut comes over. Bahamut's not the greatest unit. It is pretty disappointing, and also because it is with the War of the Visions, I don't expect blossoming to happen with it. So that one's not going to be with a lot of other people. But in Arena right now, Grey Gnarl, some Barbados, other dragons, Xenlon just really buffs up their damage and brings a lot along with it in Arena. So just, as I say, the offense, though, I think Erdrick is better. You're in control of Erdrick. Erdrick just has that much more overall. Defense, though, Xenlon, and I know a lot of people are like, Erdrick. Xenlon is the scariest unit for arena defenses, especially if you teach him buff. Why? You lay him in the back. It's I know it's going to be a tactic that people hate. Build it with some powerful dragons and maybe one or two other units. And even A-level dragons are really scary with Xenlon around there, buffing it up even just turn 1. With that, a green dragon, which is slow, very tanky. Green dragon will be able to do a decent amount of damage. People who pull a little bit or their dread dragon becomes that much more nasty. Great dragon becomes very scary, etc. So they are not always the greatest units for AI, but even just putting there, giving them a buff, having them buff up, even for just one turn, does make it incredibly dangerous, especially when then Xenlon might be fast enough to actually go out and do some massive damage later, pull other units to go along with it, and all of a sudden you just see. So for me, a Xenlon in defense and RTA, because I treat RTA more as a defensive battle that you get to play along against them. And with that, Xenlons become very, very dangerous. They force your opponent to attack earlier than they would like. And with that, Xenlon just has that panic ability, especially if you build the teams correctly. And where Erdrick is just dangerous, but he doesn't really buff teams up. I'm not going to go, oh God, this Erdrick is going to make the rest of the team stupidly impossible. No, I'm just going, oh man, this Erdrick is going to be tough to beat, but I can either pull him away with, units or, just try to attack. Obviously, it's hard to completely take away because of his ability to be immune. And that is the key part here. But I just want to state, I think Xenlon has that fear factor that makes it even stronger and much stronger than all of that combined. On PvE, Keklang is very interesting. It has all those unique abilities. The main issue is, just like Xenlon, they both don't have enough MP to really go for super long battles. But Keklang has that interesting use, where Xenlon can just buff up your dragons, and then they can take out large amounts of damage. And, with the correct teams there, then you're just going to really multiply your powers for at least the first 10 to 12 turns. But personally, I think Keklang is just that much more interesting. It just requires a decent amount of blossoming materials and time to get it, so you won't get it right away. Non-awakening, Erdrick just has the better stats and more survivable. From a skill standpoint, I think Xenlon's a little better, and the building power within your team is great. And honestly, with his leadership with the 25% breath damage, he is just going to become relevant and stay relevant longer than Erdrick will. Erdrick's not going to fall off the face of the map. Erdrick is still going to be strong in the next 6 months, guaranteed, and probably within the next year. Xenlon, though, is still going to be very important for Dragon teams, and at the very least, focus on that for real-time arena. I think is going to be very important for the higher-end players. The Awakening, the 5th Awakening is a bit disappointment. And Xenlon gets that high-end damage with high-end survivability. I feel it's a very large upgrade. And once again, as I say, you need to, if you really take a look here, there's a lot more positives on Erdrick's side than there are on Xenlon's side. But with Xenlon, I feel that there's just that niche that he controls completely, where Erdrick's just good at many things. And so, let's go with the advantages and the negatives here. Erdrick advantages, he is much more powerful right out of the box, and becomes more powerful after you put into it. physical and magic attack, which is just based on his attack power. His stats are absolutely insane. Clang, that's all I need to say. That is an important skill to learn. 3 turns lower damage and immunity is just really, really powerful. It gives him some pretty good survivability. The 20% isn't great, but in Arena, where you've got 30% on top of it, you're talking about 46% of overall damage, which is pretty big. And his heroic skill is absolutely massive. Something that can take out a very powerful unit, even potentially a Xenlon, even if Xenlon hasn't been attacked yet. His negatives is he can't learn new skills and can't boost others. And honestly, I think that's the biggest weakness for Erdrick. He needs another unit to help boost with there, and so he will just stay his power, and he could get power crept. I think Xenlon is going to stay the lower end of the S tier, whereas Erdrick is at the very high end of the S tier. So if you're going to say, Matt, what's the best unit in the game? It is Erdrick. Doesn't mean, though, it's the right unit for you. And honestly, an Erdrick at a 1 awakening versus spending 3 awakenings for Xenlon, you might get a better deal that way than just trying to go for 3 awakenings for Erdrick and 1, or, not even pulling for Xenlon. So I'm just trying to open up the minds for a lot of other players and for your account. Xenlon's advantages. His dragon buffs are stupidly powerful. We have other dragon type S units. Yes, the most important dragons in this game are boss units and not dragons. So not everyone's going to get that full buff. But dragons are the elemental masters in the game. Dragons are meta. It is Dragon Quest. Yes, heroes will be strong. Bosses will be strong. Dragons are now equivalent in that ability as long as you have Xenlon with you as your leader. With the breath damage, the dragon buffs, and also being able to have his own power increase as well if you have enough. But Xenlon is more expensive. You need him at 3 awakenings to start really unlocking that power. That's where you start seeing Xenlons just absolutely dominating the field, with, especially if they're weak to frizz or crack. That dragon damage is just insane with that AoE with his 3rd skill. There's nothing else that I could really say about that. And on turn 3, Erdrick has that one shot that he can do. From turn 3 to turn 12, Xenlon, yes, because it's 4 turns for him, Xenlon becomes an absolute terror. So in real time, you have that one ability for Erdrick, and, that will do massive damage. Xenlon is just scary from its turn 3 until the end of real-time arena. That is much more important in the long run, and once again, why I feel that Xenlon will push real-time arena in places that will scare a lot of people if there's a powerful Xenlon on the board. The regeneration with 50% reduction at highest awakening means that unless if you go out with massive damage early on, it's not going to have that much damage taken overall, especially if you place Xenlon with, as I say, with his claws, the damage will increase greatly, and then you can put on some more HP with the defense weapon, or if you really don't care about damage and you're more trying to buff and make all there, you can give him another 200 HP, which will add enough of that regeneration to make him that much harder. And once again, start really making the other user panic if they don't quite have the perfect counters to Xenlon. Erdrick is an okay counter to Xenlon, but there are others that might be a little bit better. But Erdrick's one of the few that has enough HP to probably survive too big attacks. Because if you place it correctly, Xenlon can attack Erdrick, and Erdrick can't attack back. So, just over there. But let's go with the final rules of thumb. If you say, Matt, I love the unit. I love Sage because of Dragon Quest III. Without the Sage class, I would have been totally boned. There's nothing I would have been able to... Oh, wait, that's me. That's fine. Choose that first. Always choose that over the meta units. End of story. That's all we're going to go with. Erdrick is better off with less awakenings. But Erdrick requires blossoming to get the full effect and to get Keklang, which is actually one of the last bits of blossoming that you'll be able to get through. He is an odd unit in that regards. He has a partial blossoming already. Now, that could mean that when he gets another blossom later on, and let me tell you, it's going to be way later because he's still... The units coming out after this are just no bueno compared to what we are getting in Dragon Quest III. And with the banners upcoming, I'm going to do a really quick video on that. It's going to be a little too late. Some people are going to be spending their coins, or not coins, sorry, their gems. And it'll be a little late on that regards. But it's a really tough choice right now. And they know that there's going to be people that are going to be spending a lot. And I know some people are very upset at the European price increase and also Southeast Asia. Totally understand and agree. I really think that the game developers should have just raised the prices on Apple only and let Google Play stay lower and punish Apple for making them increase the prices, or take a 20 to 30% decrease in profit. And if Apple's already taking 30, now they're taking 60% of all prices. That's pretty greedy on Apple's part. So it is Apple's fault and the developer's fault for making all Google Plays. But I'm going to drop that like a hot potato right now. Feel free to talk about whatever I'm talking about, and we can just talk about it in the comments as well. Now, if you use dragons, Xenlon is just too important to the dragon meta to not get. And Bahamut is coming out. Bahamut's not the greatest unit, but Bahamut is a dragon, has abilities similar to Xenlon with the attack, just not nearly as powerful. And with that, Xenlon will also buff up Bahamut and other future dragons in the future. So with that, if you use dragons, I think Xenlon is better for your team than Erdrick. I am not saying Xenlon is better unit-wise than Erdrick, but Xenlon is much better for your team. That's what you really need to think about in games like this. It's not always, I gotta have the meta unit. If he doesn't mesh well with your team, or what he does is he is really awesome, but then on top of it buffs everyone else, you might be missing the boat on the more important unit. If you just play PvE, and you don't really care about the PvP portion, Keklang is going to be the reason that you're going to be using Erdrick more than most likely Xenlon, unless if your best team is dragons, because there's a decent amount of free dragons out there that are pretty powerful. And some of the best A units out there are dragons that use breath, and Xenlon will buff them as well. So with that, please, I'll be happy to comment with everybody here. Just stay civil. More importantly, though, good luck to everyone. This This is going to be a really big banner. I hope everyone has fun. And